Alright, here's the third video, and this one, if you watch the last two videos that I put on there, that this one is basically you had put on a spectrometer. You had taken all your group buses or individual tracks, routed them to a bus that's routed to out, and then you have routed all of them to this bus. And you put a spectrometer on there, then on each one of those tracks you put a send on there, side chain of that spectrometer. That way that you remember you could go through there and choose different tracks that you could look and compare the spectral content with what's going on inside of the main mix, so that you can compare with what the main mix and see if there's what kind of difference you're having, what's going on there, and you can basically cite, what frequencies are being hit and what isn't happening up there and things like that. Alright, so you've got that, right? Okay, so the next thing you want to do is you want to kind of scoot this off to the side. If you got another screen, put it on there or something, but if you don't, you just got one and you just put it on there. The next thing you want to do is you want to put a Pro EQ on this bus next. Alright, and enable the sidechain on it. Then you want to go back to each one of these tracks or buses, the group bus or whatever, or just individual tracks, put an EQ on all of them. I just have one on here just for demonstrations, okay? So don't look at it like, how come there's not a bunch of EQs on there? Just for demonstration, I put one on here, but you should have one on each of them. Alright, then you put another send on each one of those tracks, side chain to that Pro EQ. Alright, so now you've got them side chained to there, okay? So now what you got is you've got those individual tracks that are side chained to that Pro EQ. And you've got an EQ back on here, so you can open up a couple of them. And here's the idea, is that you can go through here and you say, well, this is the chorus and I'm looking at it over here, what it looks like in comparison, and then go over here. Here's the guitar. What is the guitar doing on it? The frequency content under it and stuff like that. And you can watch it through those different sections or through the whole song, depending on how particular you are and how good of a mix you want to do. And then you can go back and, as you go along, you open up that EQ on that track. Now you have a representation of your final mix with that one track or that group going. You can see what's going on in it on going out. And then let's say that right in here or something, you're seeing that needs to get boosted. And like we talked, you probably need to watch the last two videos, but if that really needs to get some filling out there, you can come up into here and start boosting that area, to try to get it to fill out a little bit more as far as the entire, the mix. And you can look at it through, and while you're doing that, I do suggest that you glance to your spectrometer now and then to see a little bit better representation rather than this. This is kind of finite like that, but that you'll get a little bit more rounded view of it. And look at them both, that way you really get a good understanding. And it's a good reason for you to go buy an extra screen for your computer also. That way your wife can't bitch. You really do need to do that, I'm sorry. Anyway, there you go. And or subtracting, like you've got some frequencies in there that you can see what's happening to it while it goes along there. And you need to do some attenuation there because you're looking at the mix, what it looks like and what it looks like in there. And you're getting a really good view of what you're doing. You want to attenuate. If you watch what I'm doing here and look what's going on to it here, and then watch what is happening in the mix. Because it's really cool, because not only you're going to get to see this, that main track you're working on, or that group, you're going to see it doing the same thing over here underneath the mix. And you're going to see the mix, which is blue there, change also. So you get to see it change in three different screens, basically, to get a really good view of what it's actually doing to your mix. Does that make sense? I mean, you see while I'm moving around, you look at the one on the right, and you can see both of them being affected, the purple and the blue. The blue, the main mix, the purple, this group or track here. And that way is, if you watch the last two videos, that's just another step in the process. It looks like a lot, stuck on in my studio. But like I said, those tools are invaluable for, really doing spectral shaping. So when you get done, dude, is that you've, really spent time, shaping the spectral content of your mix, and you really got a nice, full mix, and all your sections are nice and full. You automate those EQs for different sections. You know, and then you can go and do that, check out, you got problem areas, bounce through your tracks, find out which one the problem is, or what are the, you know, because as it sums, that it starts boosting this frequency up because, you know, maybe other instruments are pushing it up. You go find the ones that are problem and start attenuating or boosting or whatever it needs to be done to fill it out and make it a nice sound. Just remember the part that I told you that sometimes you might go back here to this chorus part and want to attenuate that frequency, and coming out in the mix it sounds real good now, but you go back and listen to that chorus by itself and now it just really doesn't sound as good as it did when you first were shaping it. That doesn't mean don't spend the time shaping it when you first did it. Spend the time shaping it because it might be great for that mix. But every mix might have harmonically different content that it needs to be altered to be complementary to the rest of the mix. And because basically in the end, this blue line and this thing at the end, that's the basic, you know, the timbre of the mix, you know, the basic harmonic content of the mix. Harmonics, non-harmonics, even odd harmonics, you know, distortions, all of that's in there. And also with that, you can also run, you know, your, you know, saturations and things like that, you know, on different tracks, you know, that are just going to add saturation, you know, and then add it in or not to see what it's doing to the, you know, the spectral content, what all's happening to it. So you can visually see it and hear it with your ear. Because sometimes you just want to listen to it, but sometimes it's good to see it. And then you go, well, I wasn't really sure. I walked away from it in a few minutes and came back. But now that I see that, and you start listening to see is that an issue, that you got two wonderful tools, your eyeballs and your ears working together, that, you know, can really help a lot rather than just relying on one or the other all the time. Because sometimes what that stuff's for, dude, is to point things out. That might be an issue there, dude. You know, you might want to just kind of focus on that for a minute. But anyway, I hope that was pretty simple and pretty clear. And also a new cool tool in your Studio One, you know, so that if you didn't know how to do that or you hadn't seen that before, you'd be like, all right, dude, you got a new tool I didn't even know I had. All right, so I hope that helps a lot, and I certainly hope that helps you shape the spectral content of your mix and helps you shape the spectral content of your individual tracks to make them more complementary to your mix so that your mix comes out sounding better. Peace, hope, love, dude. Have a nice day. Hold on, before you go, one last thing I wanted to add is that if you remember when I was talking about that, is to really understand what the difference is between you trying to put an EQ on the mix, the blue here, or, you know, the whole EQ there, and trying to EQ that, and what the difference is, what I was talking about going back and EQing this chorus a little bit rather than trying to EQ the mix, you know, trying to attenuate or boost frequencies, because it's going to shape the spectral content differently, and that choir might need to be EQ'd a little bit differently for that song, or that section even sometimes. And it's a lot different type of EQing work to do. Try to remember that that is a totally different way to approach it. You're approaching it, shaping the timbral content of the entire mix, rather than just going after this frequency section in the mix, or this blue part here. You're going after all the other instruments and shaping them so they're more complementary to the mix, rather than going through later and saying this issue, this over here has a problem. You're shaping it before it ever is a problem back with the instruments. And always remember that this choir might not sound as good as the choir you did on this other song, but you're shaping it for this production and this particular song or this particular genre, that it might come out having tonal qualities, or the EQ work and the harmonic content might be at different levels and things like that, so that it's more complementary for the song. That's a huge point to get through your head, to understand why I was trying to show you that, so that when you start doing that and somebody's telling you go ahead and start EQing this, go back, dude, EQ the instruments to be complementary to it. Later on at the end of the mix, that you've got an EQ at the end, you've got to just do a little teeny bit of work here or there. Great, dude, that's understandable. I don't know of any mixers who don't. I mean, rarely does an EQ not to get to see the end of the mix, even if it's just a little teeny bit. Does that make sense? But most of it should be done and done well by this point. So sorry, but I needed to add that in there so you could understand the difference between those approaches of EQing the mix, of EQing the final summed mix and going back like this to EQ the individual parts so that their summed parts are more complementary to the mix before you do EQ at the end of the mix. Peace, hope, love. Have a nice day.